Hi everybody, today we're going to look at this costume design, character design in Sketchbook Pro from initial sketch right through to this render that we see. So we're going to take this character, Sister Una, who we would normally see as this bright yellow space nun, and through her narrative she ends up on a toxic planet and has to wear this big bulky red suit. So let's take a look. I've been using Sketchbook Pro for about 10 years now, I think, and I still use it for everything from sketching to digital inking to painted, rendered work. I'm using this as a desktop version, and I'm using a Cintiq 21UX to draw on. I just want to show you a neat tool in Sketchbook Pro that I find essential for my digital drawing. It's a very simple tool, but I can't really do without it. So the spacebar brings up this, which is the zoom and pan tool. So it's on one shortcut, which I have assigned to the stylus button. So that means with just one hand and no need for a keyboard, I can zoom in for those extra fine details, but also quickly zoom and pan around the image to gauge the overall composition and balance. I kind of take a traditional approach to it, a pencil drawing, and here we see I'm blocking out a very rough sketch just to get the overall feel and proportions. Then we'll go through an inking stage, and then finally a colour stage. So I think at some point here I decided that the pose was maybe a little static and I wanted to bring a little bit more narrative into it. So I've started to change some of the angles and proportions, and also the head angle was kind of our back view. I've tilted it down, perhaps the character's looking at something. It's really nice to add a little bit of off-screen narrative to intrigue the viewer. It doesn't necessarily add anything to the concept, but it kind of draws you into that world. A little something to add depth and help sell your idea. So what I'm doing a lot of the time when sketching is trying to find the balance between the soft and the hard shapes, the angles, the tangents, the details, and the wide areas, so you've got this nice flow of form and details to take the eye. This was quite an overworked sketch. I probably wouldn't spend that long normally on a sketch before moving to the inking stage. I don't generally need that clear a line before I start. A lot of the work will be done with the brush stroke, so to have too much construction underneath is just going to be a bit frustrating sometimes to try and replicate those lines. Okay, so a quick note on brushes. I tend to use the same brush settings for both the drawing as well as the erasing, except for the erasing it's a lot bigger, to get rid of all those mistakes a lot quicker. So here we've got like a sampled brush which I drew up. That's just some blobs which we then sample, and with the kind of fine to heavy settings you can only really see it when it's very heavy, but this is the same one that I've been doing all the work with, whether I'm penciling or inking. I do have a couple of variations on that. where we've got heavier settings for the same kind of pressure. But again, the bigger razor makes it all better. All gone. I generally get in the larger, bigger shapes first when inking, and then refine down to the details and noodling away at those little bits here and there. Convert the ink layer to a multiply layer and start painting in underneath, just flatting out the colours, really blocking out the main areas, the dominant areas of colour, before I will then go in and start shading and adding lighting. So as with the brush I use for inking, similarly the ones I use for painting, pretty much the same settings, except not quite so sharp fall off for the tip. I do have a set of these as well, all set to different sizes, and I keep them at those sizes rather than scaling them up or down. This way I know exactly what I'm going to get with those, and it keeps a kind of uniform approach across all the painting. The nice thing with this is it gives a little bit of extra detail, a little bit of extra grain and hatching. This approach to rendering I've been using for about a year now. I was doing some costume design last year, and I needed to really convey the material quality of the forms better. When you're doing costume design and something's going to be turned into a practical item, it's really good to convey the material quality, the age of it, how much breakdown it might need. So I kind of developed this more involved rendering. Some of you may be used to my more flat coloured work, but this came out really of a need to convey to the costume designer, the director, as well as the props people, what we wanted from the materials. I'm using 3 points of light, I think, on this image. So we've got this nice backlight, this kind of lilac light coming over the rim there, an uplight which is more of a yellowy colour, plus just a light on it so we can get some curvature to those forms, all to kind of help establish the solid quality here. So this is pretty much there, and the final stage of most of my illustrations will be to take it into Photoshop to add some little extra lighting and grading work. So here I'll add levels just to kind of pop the shadow and the light a little. Maybe I'll add a gradient map which adds extra colours here and there where you would least expect it and probably wouldn't paint in. It adds a nice bit of atmosphere. And also I occasionally do some lighting effects where we look like we've got some spill light or some rim lighting that'll come around the side of the character here. It adds a nice little bit of atmosphere and helps put the character in a little bit of hinted context. And then finally I add a layer of noise. This was created from some heavily filtered watercolour textures that I've created. It just breaks down the digital quality, adds an almost paper grain to the image. And there we go. Thanks so much for watching. See you next time.